Hi everybody, we spoke about prenuptial agreements before, and today I wanted to talk about prenuptial agreements and immigration. Not every lawyer who deals with the family law maybe is aware that there is a document that you sign when you're sponsoring somebody as an undertaking, right? That needs to be mentioned into that prenuptial agreement, because when we deal with those cases, right? Let's imagine a man getting married and sponsoring his wife from another country, and he wants to have a prenuptial agreement because he knows that who knows how it's gonna go. Maybe it's not gonna work out, so it's a different, not necessarily always a different culture. People could be from the same country, right? We had lots of clients who came from Ukraine or Russia, and they were sponsored by people from the same country, from who already been in Canada for a while, right? So the culture is the same, the language is the same, but still they bring somebody from that country, and something happens, maybe they cannot get along, right? So in order not to lose funds or like not to give rights to the new spouse for the house or apartment, whatever, condominium, so people enter into the prenuptial agreement, and a lawyer who is preparing that agreement have to explain to that sponsor that the obligation to Canadian government is above that agreement between them. Okay, so we always have in my agreements that we draft for these scenarios, we always have a paragraph saying that so and so is sponsoring so and so, and they understand that this sponsorship undertaking is for so long, from the moment the person receives permanent resident status, and this agreement is not gonna help the person to avoid the responsibilities the sponsor gave when he applied for this application. Okay, so example could be like that. Let's say they got married and she got the documents, and they lived only for like 6 months after she got the documents, and they're getting divorced. Okay, so the woman doesn't work, she maybe doesn't speak the language, she has no way of supporting herself, and she did sign a prenuptial agreement, but for that period of the rest of the sponsorship period, she can demand support from her spouse, because the prenuptial agreement would state that this obligation is valid until that period of undertaking is over. If they, let's say, separate after that period is over, then if the agreement properly drafted this way, then there is no support. So she either has to find a job, I don't know, or go back home. It will be her choice, but there is no obligation on the spouse to support her. And I have to say that this is something that not every family lawyer knows, because if you don't deal with if immigration matters, then you're just not aware of it, right? So the agreement might say that you're not paying any support, but in reality, that's not going to be the case. So I hope it's not all confusing. The people who are involved in sponsorship agreements, they know for how long they're responsible. And another very interesting issue is sponsoring somebody's children. So let's say you found love in some other country, and that woman will have the same scenario. A man is from Canada, he found somebody from, let's say Philippines, and wants to bring her here, but that lady has children, and we're just going to take like minor children who have no disability, no nothing. Maybe they're 5 years old, 6 years old, for example, right? And yes, they can go in the application, and the sponsor will be signing undertaking for those children as well. Well, I would warn those men about their responsibilities, because that responsibility is much longer, could be much longer, depending on a child's age, than the responsibility to the wife. So the situation could be that you have a prenuptial agreement that covers you, that protects your home, your pension plan, maybe no spousal support to the wife after the undertaking is over, but then there are kids, okay, and you're responsible for those kids. So the issue could be that you will be paying child support to these children, and I've done some research on that point, because if it wasn't a sponsorship situation, right, it was just a situation where you getting married with a woman who's got children, and then you are getting divorced from her, the question is, do you have obligation to those children or not? And if you didn't stand in a position of the father to them, and they do have a father after whom your spouse can go for child support, so the obligation is on that biological father. If the situation is like that there is no father, and you lived with the kids for a while, and you've been raising them as they're your own kids, and you stood in a role of the father, yes, she can go after you for the child support. With the situation in with the immigration case, you undertook to provide for these children, so she basically can come after child support after you. That's at least what I've seen in cases that I read. And the question is it going to be the same table amount as it would be just in a regular scenario without considering any immigration laws and so on? So my advice to men, maybe women too, I don't know, because it could be a situation that a woman is sponsoring, right? It doesn't matter, and maybe a man has a child and she will be sponsoring that man with his child, but more commonly it's the man sponsoring a woman with a child, and that's why I used this as example. So I would suggest either way, whoever is sponsoring whom, think about it. Draft prenuptial agreement anyway, and protect yourself as much as you can, because consequences could be really unpleasant. And one thing is to have a relationship on the distance, and everything seems great, and you're in love and you want to be together. You do anything to bring this woman here, and maybe she is playing a role of a wonderful woman, loving woman, because she wants to get out of her country, right? And you don't understand that. So once the person is here, it's totally different story, and we've seen those stories, unfortunately. So therefore, to protect yourself and your assets and your income, and just go and get legal advice from a lawyer. So even if you do immigration or the whole immigration process by yourself, go to a family lawyer and find out about your situation, how you can protect yourself. And don't worry, this prenuptial agreement is not gonna jeopardize any immigration matter, because it's very common in our country to have it, right? So people who not even involved with any immigration stuff, they do prenup. So it's not a sign of it's being not a true marriage and so on, I would say, right? So You just want to protect yourself, and you need to have it done. And I would suggest that you ask your lawyer about this period of your sponsorship undertaking period, right? So what will happen and how much you have to support and so on. So we can put links to the Canada Immigration Refugee Citizenship, just to show who can sponsor, how you can sponsor, and all that stuff. And but if you in this process, you already know what's required of you, whether you can be a sponsor or not. But I recommend that you do that prenuptial agreement. Where you can have a difficulty with signing the agreement is when your person, like your spouse, future spouse, is abroad, and you need to provide them independent legal advice. Okay, so we've done before independent legal advice over the like internet, over the video conference, like we would, and it was with Ukraine or Russia. So we would explain them the agreement. Let's say we have somebody approaching us and saying, okay, I want to draft a prenuptial agreement. And I tell that person, listen, if I have to talk to your spouse, then I'm not going to draft it for you because I have to represent her. And we will have to identify them and do all our procedures, but we can definitely give them an advice. And then when they sign it, and it was before COVID, so we couldn't have all this remote signing and stuff, but they would go to a notary in their country to witness their signature. And unfortunately, when it's in a country that doesn't have let's say English as a second official language, then everything has to be translated from English to Ukrainian or Russian, or it has to be in both languages, because the notary there would not sign it in any foreign language. So that was a little bit complicated, but still we did it because like it's worth doing it. So we would give independent legal advice, and that bride would go and sign the documents with a local notary. And then when the documents arrive here, or when she arrives here with her documents eventually at some point, then we can provide her with a certificate of independent legal advice, so they have it on the file that she actually received it, because she cannot get that independent legal advice in her country because those lawyers, first of all, they don't maybe understand the English, and the document is in English. Okay, it can be translated, but they don't know our rules or acts or anything, right? So they have their different rules. So that lawyer there back in Ukraine or Russia cannot give somebody legal advice on the document drafted to be used in Canada, let's say. So therefore, we would do it. So I'm not sure how would it work in the different countries. Let's say you have a bride from England or Australia. The language is the same, but I doubt that a local lawyer there will be very comfortable giving advice on all the laws of Manitoba here or Canada, right, in general. For example, we have my favorite Homestead Act, right? What is that? Like, how you're gonna waive your rights? Like, they might not know what it is. I don't know. So that would be maybe even negligent on the side of the other lawyer there in that country to give advice, because I wouldn't give any advice to any of the clients who are going to use documents in Russia or Ukraine. What we do, we always say, you need to find a local lawyer there. We can witness documents, but we cannot give you any advice on them. So that's that, I guess. Things to remember for you. So you need a prenup. When you do prenup, you have to understand that you have undertaking before Canadian government, right? And that trumps the agreement. So for that period, So don't think that you're going to be just not responsible at all. It doesn't work like that. Then think about the children and your responsibility to her children or your spouse's children, and think how you can execute that agreement. So if your spouse happened to come to Canada as a visitor, and then you got married here and you want to do immigration process within Canada, then it's easy. You can find a local lawyer, and even speaking the language your spouse is speaking, if she doesn't speak English very well, right? So, or you can have a maybe interpreter involved in all that stuff, but the person needs to understand what she is waiving, because if at some point she'll have to go to court and say, I didn't understand, nobody explained me in my language, I don't know what I signed, or let's say he forced me to sign because he said if I don't sign I'll have to be going back and all that stuff. So you have to be careful how it all takes place, because you don't want any pressure, any how would I say, any pressure, any situation when like you have a wedding tomorrow and you're forcing her to sign because she has no choice, right? So that's not a good idea. Everything has to be done in advance, so the person has a right to think, decide whether she wants to voluntarily sign it or not. Otherwise, it can go against you in court, and this agreement can be set aside, and then everything will be divided and considered based on the rules in our province. That's that. It's late and I'm tired, but anyway, I hope that will be useful for you. And if you need a prenuptial agreement, let us know. Some take very long time to draft because of depending on your situation or your assets and how you want to structure it. And some are very easy. We can do it in a day or two, and that's it. Wish you all the best. Bye.